Okay. Hi, Nick. How are you doing?
Very well indeed. How are you? It is afternoon, isn't it? It's 12:15 on Tuesday.
It is. It is.
Yes.
Again, time is flying by.
We enter week 3
I know. How exciting. Uh,
lockdown thing.
Yesterday, we talked about learning something new. So I wanted to extend that, and that is doing something new. So some of my clients have moved the live workshops that we were going to do to a webinar based format. And I'm sure lots of other people are doing that, but this is quite new to me.
Yes.
And you and I have just had a discussion about how you manage that, how, because we're used to managing, not only the energy in the room, but facilitating the room.
Mm.
And we're both curious to know how this works in practice when you're doing it at a distance.
Yeah.
And the modifications that you have to make
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
order to deliver what you normally deliver, but virtually. So we've reduced a day's workshop down to little 3 bite-sized chunks, because we think, obviously, if you're on a Zoom, a web thing for all day, you'd just be exhausted. That's not workable.
No. No.
So we're kind of living in a time of a giant experiment.
But we've all got time to do that giant experiment, haven't we? Yes, I was having a conversation with one of my clients yesterday, and she was saying, look, we want some of the stuff that you do, but we want you to deliver it obviously over a webinar thing, and people will go in, you'll get groups of people to do things, and then they'll come back. And we both agreed that we need to know how to find out how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also we were talking about a course that I would normally deliver over 2 hours, and I said that's just too much. So we probably need sort of 45 minutes to an hour with a little bit of Q&A at the end.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm just writing that content for that, because the other thing is there are things that I want to talk to people about networking through Zoom, and building relationships that way.
Yeah, so I think we're all having to think beyond our normal pattern of thinking,
Yes.
as well as learning new skills,
Yeah.
and employing a huge amount of creativity to do that. So like you, I've looked at my course content and gone, right, well, how do I make that work in an hour time slot? And then what value can they add it to themselves later? So we've said, look, we take an hour on the webinar, but then have an hour in your diary later that day to do the work that I set for you to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a lot of creative thinking going on, which is good.
And have you discovered any particular platforms that you prefer over another?
Well, Zoom I find really easy, really, really easy. And
Skype?
no, don't like Skype. I find it really difficult, not very user friendly. I know a lot of corporates like Team Meeting, which is, I think that's the Microsoft, or is it Meetup, I think?
Yeah, I've heard of that, the Microsoft one, virtual team thing, because a lot of my clients use that, as you would expect them, I suppose, to use a Microsoft product. But Zoom everyone seems to be discovering Zoom at the moment, don't they?
Yeah, and they just had to upgrade their security.
Oh, right.
Yeah, yeah, they did.
Yeah, understandably, I suppose.
Seems to be a nice problem to have.
Mm.
Okay, so what I think would be interesting is to hear from people how they've changed their delivery mechanism or changed what they're doing, and whether that's better than what they did before.
It's just not as good as in person, isn't it? I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? It's not as good as in person, because you're just not picking up all the signals that you can when you're face to face with somebody, and all that, all that non-verbal communication, which, as you know, I teach. It's good, but before this whole lockdown thing was, I was reading something from the program on negotiation, which is Harvard's thing around negotiation, and it was talking about negotiating via video conference, and saying, yeah, okay, it's good and it's better than telephone, but actually their advice was, if you can put it off until, you know, if it's not essential, if you can put it off until you can meet people face to face, you flipping well should do. Because video conferencing is just, it's not, you can't beat that visceral sitting next to people or sitting round a table. So it has its limitations, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. The upside is you can reach a wider audience. So I was on a call this morning with people from 5 different countries.
Right.
And that's the upside of this virtual world. And people, you know, I've had calls with people from New York and South Africa, and I had somebody contact me from India this morning. And I think actually this is because of that creativity, people are now thinking, right, well, the world's quite a small place in reality. Who else could I be working with who isn't necessarily on my doorstep? And I think there's a willingness at the moment amongst businesses across the planet to really help each other and support each other, and this technology is helping us to do that enormously.
Yeah, you can't imagine if this had happened before the internet.
Yeah.
Or before video conferencing was invented, and it was simply, well, it was telephone or email. I think we'd be in a right pickle, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I think we would. So the measure is what you're doing, that's how you're delivering things differently, what are you using to deliver it differently, and is it better, or as Nick says, do you definitely need that human contact to make it the best it could be? So yeah, I think that's the thing to think about.
Good. I think that's us done, isn't it?
It is. I need to let everybody know that tomorrow I'm going to do a video, but then I'm going to take a long weekend off for Easter.
Are you actually having a proper, are we not doing any of these?
No, we're not, because I'm going to take a holiday.
So what's our viewer going to do?
I don't know. I would, if they can, if they're not a key worker, then a little bit of downtime, if possible.
Or log on to trypress.com.
Yeah.
And start doing the courses, which are free at the moment.
Yeah, they are.
That's what they should be doing.
You're quite right. That's exactly what they should be doing.
Yeah.
All right. Good. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.
Right, see you. Bye.